and this Heisman push is without question underway, and the national media has caught on, and they've caught on for good reason, because on Saturday night, Jayden Daniels did something that had never been done before in college football. Not in the SEC, not at LSU, not in a game versus Florida, not in a particular season. In the history of college football, Jayden Daniels set a record that had never been done. First off, he accounted for 606 total yards of offense, 5 touchdowns, and became the first quarterback in FBS history to have at least 350 yards passing and 200 yards rushing in the same game as LSU beat Florida 52-35 on Saturday night. The highlights that Jayden Daniels put down on Saturday, again, we're at a wedding, right? And we're watching this thing and was able to go back and watch the thing.
How big is your iPhone?
I mean, it was, but as he's sprinting down the sideline on the 85-yarder, I mean, the way he is running past defenders is so running back-esque. Fournette, Falk, Geis, I mean, Ali Broussard, I mean, guys that you would just see take off and could bust them from, that is hard to do. Usually you just run out of gas. Your stamina lets you down. I mean, you just can't, you can't go anymore. He is gliding on the field. I mean, it's almost as if he's getting faster the further away from the line of scrimmage he gets. There was one in the first half where he busts one of the long ones where he doesn't score, where he hops out of bounds and his footwork is so beautiful.
Coach,
he's like a ballerina where he just kind of like makes a move and just kind of hops off 2 feet. It is as if he is playing and toying
by himself
with Division I college football players. And the most impressive part about Saturday night, and the reason why I believe that moment is the Heisman moment that is going to push him over the top, because I think on Saturday night, not only did he become like an invitee, he became the front runner. He became the guy. He became the dude. Listening to shows already this morning, people are all over the country are talking about Jayden Daniels and just how big his performance was on Saturday night. And I think people are now starting to dive into the numbers of the history of his performances this year. And you're like, whoa, this guy, he's been the best player on the field every single week.
Remember when they tried to say Jordan Travis was better than him?
Oh, gosh.
They watched that. I don't even know what that was Saturday, but that was not good.
But the part that was most impressive that I believe is going to live on, and why this moment pushes him to a spot that you got to catch him now. Like, not only is this performance something that has never been done in the history of college football, but he did it on a stage that they needed every single point and every single yard, and it was against a conference opponent in a game that was competitive. I mean, after LSU trails 28-24 in that game, they go 4 straight touchdown drives, all of them led by Jayden Daniels. They get to 2 third downs.
They had 1 third down in the second half.
That is unreal.
They were like 4 for 6 on third down. Brian Kelly said something about that in the presser. It was just like, I mean, we didn't have many third downs. It's just score it or get the first down on first down.
And I know this is the time to give Jayden Daniels his flowers, but what I was most impressed with was whenever he got kind of banged up into the Florida bench, Emory Jones came.
Yeah.
Like they learned
that
Florida tried to bully them. They tried because it was a close game. Like it was a game for a little bit, 17-14. Right? Yes, but it became y'all aren't doing this in Tiger Stadium to LSU on our field. That ain't happening anymore. So you saw a little bit of that dog come out in LSU, which we've been waiting for. If you've been just watching LSU football, like, okay, we'll toe the line, we'll toe the line, we'll toe the line. Finally, it was like, not this team. They ain't go. Billy, you ain't coming here and doing that to us. And finally, you saw Emory Jones in there, and he looked like he could have took on the whole bench.
Yeah, he wanted
to. And it got chippy early, and it was one of those things that you kind of saw against Florida State, and you saw
LSU back down a little bit.
Right, where it was, do they know that y'all are getting pushed around a little bit? Like, let it out the cage, coach.
I mean,
and they finally did, where it was, we got a little toughness to us. Our skin's pretty thick.
Dog of the week, Josh Williams.
Good. That's another play.
Josh Williams.
Let him hear about it.
And that kid was a 5-star. That linebacker was a 5-star.
15 was talking the most trash before the game. Like, they were in each other's face, and he was pointing back and forth. I mean,
that Jayden Daniels,
they both let him know.
even talked a little trash to him. I mean, Will Campbell said it right here. He was like, he don't say anything during the game. He said people constantly trying to get in his head. You know what I mean? He just...
Josh Williams tagged that man in the tweet.
You had to.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that is...
You got to post that.
That's one of the finest LSU highlights I've ever seen.
He gave everything for that.
I mean, like that...
Cool.
He stood that dude straight up and knocked him on
Cole
his
Kublik
ass.
on the broadcast said we call that a decleater. And that's...
It looked like Maurice Jones-Drew.
It was like the Jadeveon Clowney hit.
Yeah, took that man's soul.
And then let him know about it. Like, he ain't going to heaven,
didn't
coach.
Even look at him when he was talking
No.
trash.
He looked straight at the sideline.
He was walking straight to the sideline.
I'm trying to get over there.
And look, that wasn't his only one of the night.
No, he had a couple.
Williams had a couple where he stones people.
Oh, the safety blitz one time, and he just...
And Jayden Daniels steps up, scrambles out.
That was a 51-yard run.
That was a 51-yard
And then Josh Williams is running with him, blocking downfield.
I mean, man, I'm telling you, Williams he's a pro.
Yeah.
He's a pro.
Kasky called it last year. Oh, speaking of Kasky Clicker, 3:30 today.
That's right.
Yes.
So we'll put it on the ticker. But, we're going a little early today. But Kasky's been screaming for Williams. And if you want to talk about him being a pro, he hadn't said a word about like the lack of playing time. Only got his carries, and every time he's in the game, he makes an impact.
I loved Brian Kelly's press conference on Saturday. Do we have all these sound bites? I mean, we can listen to them, but I mean, just some reaction to it. I was glad the way that he look. I mean, we could do. You could talk all day about Jayden Daniels. Really, I mean, we could just keep this podcast from 7 to 9 a.m. and we could do it all about Jayden Daniels.
I ain't out of flowers.
How good he is, right? And for Brian Kelly to take the opportunity and point out, like Noah Cain and Josh Williams and guys that, just epitome of team, right? Like, I mean, really what makes teams good, what makes teams great are guys that can buy in, that not necessarily are a part of every single Saturday and every single play, but when it's time, they're prepared. And Cain caught a touchdown pass on Saturday. Williams had a touchdown catch. He had a touchdown. Did he had the first?
He ran a touchdown and he had that big long run, a long catch.
Right.
From
John Emery is about to cook.
Don't hurt me right now.
That
was
I'm in a good mood.
Man, it was a beautiful move.
It was a beautiful move. There was he just did one too many beautiful moves.
Way too many.
ACL wasn't ACLing. But it
was.
You could tell he was about to get going. He scored a touchdown last year against Florida.
He likes playing against Florida.
I mean, the move at the line.
Oh my God!
That was vintage John Emery.
I mean, that was high school John Emery.
Mm-hmm.
God, he looked good. But hopefully he's okay. But it didn't. I mean, that was tough.
No,
able to like kind of walk off under his own power. Yeah. But it just
you could tell what
the credit to him to just get off the field was even that. But hey, if it's a career, I mean, if it's a season ender, that's medical red shirt. Come on back, John. Let's do it at 6 year.
Let's do it.
It's gonna be a doctor.
Would it be 6 or 7?
I think. COVID
he got here in 19.
No, I think this would be his 7th.
He got here in 19. It would be 2024. So it is 7 years. My math might be off. I don't know.
Andre Sam, you can talk to him about that. Who's also America's Most Wanted, apparently.
Yeah.
I thought this was Brian Kelly's best response in the press conference, Stewie. This is 5. Kelly post-game being asked about Andre Sam and the targeting call, which he was ejected from the game on Saturday.
I figured that was going to come up. I needed to take a little bit more time to make sure that I was articulating this the right way. I just think that we're in a bad position in college football as it relates to targeting. And I brought this up when we had the transmitter in the helmet. I had been pounding that table for the transmitter and the helmet for about 3 years, and it's fallen on deaf ears until all of a sudden there seems to be this sign stealing, epidemic, and now everybody wants to put the the radio piece in the helmets. Well, we're going to get to that with targeting as well. When you have a situation like we did, where Jayden Daniels gets hit underneath the chin, driven to the ground, and is concussed, and it doesn't get reviewed, and then we have a play like tonight, which was a normal football play where a running back is lowering his shoulder, and we are trying to make a tackle. We're not targeting. We're not trying to lead with the helmet. We're just trying to make a tackle. We throw a kid out of the game. That is tragic. We're in a bad place right now. And we need to stop and figure this out. Because there's a lot of words I could use, but it's tragic that we threw a kid out of a game because he was trying to play football. And whatever semantics, there's going to be a great explanation about this. Oh, he used the crown of his helmet, or he did this, or he did that. He was playing football. Last week, that guy that hit Jayden Daniels was trying to knock him out. You can say whatever you want, but that's what he was trying to do. Our guy was trying to make a tackle. So everybody's smart enough to figure that out. But we have two different outcomes. We got to figure it out.
And what were your thoughts on Ryan Yates and Jordan Allen when they came to replace Andre?
They, they did a pretty good job. I mean, we should have cut one post off, but I thought, Jordan got a little bit more work. I don't know that he got a lot. I think the one thing that disappointed me a little bit with the young guys is they got to tackle, and I'm not going to let up on that with them. I mean, when you go out there, I don't care if you run 4.2, 4.3, I don't care if you got 6 stars or 18 stars, you better darn tackle. And we got to tackle when we're out there. And it's not even an art. It's a want to, and we got to tackle better.
That was a great answer.
A couple of great answers. I mean, really.
Because that targeting call was.
I mean, Andre Sam was just playing football. Like you can't say it any other way than that.
My man then he didn't even make the tackle.
Whenever I saw the flag come out in the review, there was a part of my brain that was like,
they're about to kick him out the game. I knew they were.
That's what I knew was going to happen, but I thought it was like, dude, are they finally going to call targeting on the offense? Because that man lowered his head into Andre Sam.
I thought that was exactly what they were going to call. I thought they were going to call.
I mean, I know better.
On the running back.
Yeah, I know better than to think that.
Come on now.
But Andre Sam went backwards.
He didn't make the tackle, Coach. He did not make the tackle.
He just put himself in harm's way. And I was looking at I had to go through the game book to be like, who's 6?
Yeah.
I hadn't
Jordan
seen him.
Allen.
I know it, but I was like, I don't know who they have left.
Lafayette's finest, Coach.
LCA? Mm-hmm. Let's go. The portal.
Yeah.
That's the one.
So, look, I mean, they got a big problem on their hands on targeting. They just don't know what it is. It's like a catch. It's like a catch in the NFL. They don't know how to define it.
Ball looked like it came out. I don't know.
Right. I mean, it's
bunch of old dudes just in a huddle talking about.
I need to catch my breath. I've been following Jayden Daniels down the sidelines for 85 yards. Like, we got to call it targeting here, Coach. I'm tired.
I need a
break.
It's a shame for Andre Sam, though.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he
get your money's worth.
Does not deserve to come off the field. And I love Brian Kelly calling out last week, because last week was what it was. I mean, let me say this about Dallas Turner. I mean, it probably is, kind of like a dirty play in today's football, but the mentality of what and how he plays with, I hope the Saints draft him. You know what I mean? That's what football is. I mean, the way that he plays. But in today's rules, looking at last week and looking at what you saw Saturday, how in the world
are those two?
That should be the scale. Like, that should be the spectrum.
Let's put this all on
right.
Videos.
Like, I mean,
that's the teaching tape of what is and what isn't.
Exactly. I mean, that
which one got called?
That has to be the off-season course. Like, look, which one of these two do you think is targeting?
You'd be wrong.
I mean, you would be.
I'd probably be wrong 10 out of 10 times.
I would think if you showed that to someone that doesn't watch football, didn't see those two plays, and you say, which one looks the most like targeting?
Got to be the Alabama one.
It's got to. Right. I mean,
that's the one that Rich Eisen voices when they send out in the NFL. They're like, you can't rough the quarterback. This is what it looks like. Nope. Actually,
I mean,
it's you getting bodied.
If Dallas Turner did that in the NFL, you'd be looking at a $60,000 fine.
Oh, that's a game check.
Oh man, he's out of game check for sure.
Like, they might have kicked him out of the game for something like that.
I mean, he hits with the crown of his helmet on the kid's chin.
Yeah,
and drives him into the ground.
Think about him doing that to
which
Joe
part
Burrow.
did we miss? Like, where did he not break the rule?
Tried to break that man's jaw.
And he landed on top of him with force. Like, all of the rules, like everything that checks every box for targeting would have been that. And that's where, again, you have to give credit to Five. We don't talk about his toughness enough, man. To come back, and tough. We didn't know what he was going to do. He could have easily been like, we're good. Like, I don't have to play this week. Nussmeier's getting some run, whatever. Jayden was like, nah, this is my chance to have and then to do something that's never been done in college football.
Started off kind of like a little bit, and then he just
missed a couple throws.
Yeah,
but you know what? Like, after watching him now for 20+ games, that's who he is.
Yeah, he just starts a little slow.
He's kind of like that California cool.
Laid back right now, Coach.
I'm here, but I'm not here yet. Let me get a drink, scope the scene. I'll let y'all know.
Yeah. Let me holler at Coach in the booth real quick.
I don't have to see the opener, Coach. I'm trying to see the band.
That's right. I mean, I'm just... I'll be there. Don't worry. I'll be there. When it's time, I'll be there. But speaking of receivers, I wanted to point out, and while we were talking about LSU, and obviously Jayden Daniels deserves so much attention, and he will be talked about. I think he's in the Heisman spotlight. He'll be in New York. The way that the voting goes now, if this changed in 2021, is just where they bring in the top 4 vote getters. So the field is 4. And it's going to be 4. In years past, before 2021, sometimes they would have 3, sometimes we had 5. You'd have 5, and it was all because of like how close the voting was. If there was a certain margin that the voting was in within the top 5 spaces, well, they would bring the top 5 players that were in that number. If there was 4 and 5 that were so far off, they just bring 3. But now the rule has changed in 2021 where they bring the top 4 vote getters. I am confident that Jayden Daniels will be in that number at least. And as we sit here on this Monday morning, I believe he is the front runner. I believe he is the guy to beat because, if you're an honest college football fan, you look around, and we'll ask Billy Lucci this because Lucci he's a great resource for this. Guy watches a ton of college football. He's invested into one team that's not LSU. He would give you Texas A&M, the team he covers, does not have anyone that fits the criteria of a Heisman Trophy candidate. So he's not going to give you one of his own. He's going to tell you after watching 10 weeks of college football who he believes to be the best player. And I think obviously there is bias here. Obviously there is looking through a pretty focused lens of just watching LSU play predominantly of the season, but looking around and watching a ton of college football, that Jayden Daniels is the best player on the field each and every week. He affects the game more than any particular player consistently does week in, week out in the sport. And I think for as much as we talk about the schedule and the outcomes and the defense, the things that he can't control, I think now you've got a couple of pieces of data that you can look at to support that criteria. You can support that prompt if that is in fact a part of what it takes to win the award. Take Jayden Daniels off of the field like you did in Tuscaloosa. What happened?
That's the biggest case for him.
Offense falls apart. In the 3 losses that LSU has suffered, if you look at his play, he has played at a high level for the entire part of the game. In fact, if you go to the Ole Miss game, his margin for error, his inability to be able to make a mistake has to come into play because you've got at Ole Miss, the fumble in the first half is is the play of the game.
First quarter, I think that was, right?
It was the second drive. And he goes on to throw for 500 yards, his typical game, but his margin for error, and that's every single week the pressure that he has to play with. And has continued to do it. One thing that we don't talk about enough is his toughness. He didn't practice on Tuesday, goes through the mental reps on Wednesday, gets out there, practices in the middle of the week, gets his preparation in, goes out on Saturday and sets an FBS college football record and does something that never has been done in the sport, in the history of it.
The one thing that you didn't think he was going to be able to do, or didn't, I'd imagine the coaching staff probably didn't want him to do, was run the football. I think he took off, 12 times, only had 12 carries, not very many designed runs. He was given it a lot on those, I could call it a quarterback choice, RPO, whatever you want to call it, but he wasn't keeping a lot of those. But when push came to shove and he saw the defense, he tucked tail, and he just runs like a bad kid that has scissors in the house. Like, don't touch me, don't get me. He just keeps going where you can't catch him. And I don't think LSU expected him, or the coaching staff probably didn't want him to run that much, but the man's a gamer.
Yeah. He is.
And you need all of it. Caleb Jackson, punted it to Florida, just kicked it right back to him.
He is the best player in college football. I mean, look, I watched Michael Penix on Saturday. He had a good game. He had another good game. I think he threw for over 300 yards, 2 scores, no picks. Ran for a touchdown. Bo Nix played well on Saturday for Oregon.
He played against LSU's defense. Threw for 412 and 4 touchdowns against USC.
Did what he had to do against a bad defense, right?
Right.
You know,
and they won by 9.
He went out there and performed. And I loved Brian Kelly's answer on, look, if it's a popularity contest, it might not be Jayden Daniels, but it might be. You know, I think that Jayden Daniels might be surging in the popularity award as well. His performance on Saturday night's got a lot of people being like, oh, wow.
Jayden Daniels can play football, huh?
I mean, he's doing stuff that has never been done. I mean, in football, when you do stuff that's never been done in the history of the sport, you've been playing for a long time.
And it makes it easy to talk about, right? You know, when there's something that it sets a precedent for, okay, we can't ignore this now. Yeah, whenever you go for over, 600 yards?
Right.
I mean, you're playing NCAA on easy mode, easy play, where it's like, what can he do?
And you still got people clamoring for Marvin Harrison Jr. to win the Heisman.
That's the other thing. On social media is insane.
And J.J. McCarthy?
Coach, Michigan ran the ball 32 straight times to finish the game Saturday.
Did you see the running back after the game?
He looked like he had blood all over his face.
Brian Kelly had a great answer. This is 9 of him talking about what the Heisman, what is it? You know, I mean, if it's one thing, he might not be the winner. But if it goes to the best player in college football, he's the clear-cut favorite right now.
If he didn't win it tonight, he's got to be the leading candidate, because what he did tonight, unless the Heisman is just about popularity, if you want to be the most popular, then fine. But he's the best player in college football. He did something tonight that no one's ever done. So if that doesn't make you the leading candidate, then maybe the Heisman is not really for the best player. Maybe it's for the most popular player.
It's a great answer. I mean, because in reality, I mean, if it goes to the best player, look at this guy's body of work. It speaks for itself. You really don't have to pound the podium for him anymore. I really don't. I mean, if you have a vote, you have a responsibility to educate yourself every single Saturday on who the biggest playmakers in the sport are, who the best players are. Every single week, Jayden Daniels is the best player on the field. Marvin Harrison might be the most talented player on the field every single week. He's still not the best player on the field every week. He doesn't affect the game every single week like Jayden Daniels does. He's not supposed to. He doesn't touch the ball every play. Daniels does.
And that's where the Heisman has become a de facto quarterback award, right? Like you've seen it, Devontae
the last Derrick Henry?
Yeah, those are the two.
Yeah.
That it's not, and for this year, it feels like every player in the country that was up for the Heisman was probably going to be a quarterback because there's so many good ones, right? But the narrative that's been spun or continues to be weaved is you look at, like I said, you look at social media and you see 3 losses. Yeah, it's 3 losses all in road games to top 10 teams in the country.
Yeah, and like when did
did he play bad?
When did
you want to play safety?
When did it become this? I really
never this year.
RG3,
3 losses.
Tebow,
Caleb Williams,
Lamar Jackson.
I mean, just.
And LSU completely embarrassed Lamar Jackson after he won the Heisman.
Yeah, no. He didn't
And
know
Caleb Williams
And
lost
I was
to Tulane.
fine with Lamar Jackson winning the Heisman.
He was the
Me
best
too.
player of the
He was
country.
the best player.
I mean, it doesn't matter to me the team's success. I mean,
Johnny Manziel 2 losses, which
So-
Lucci will probably give some sort of credence to this of how it weighs on the Libra scale, where you're like, at what point does it become obvious? Like, obviously, it's not. It feels like sometimes whenever it's that if you're not in the national championship conversation, it becomes like has to be a story that you've never seen before. Like Johnny Manziel was a
freshman.
Something that you've never seen before. Tim Tebow was the first one to win it as a sophomore since the first one ever.
Yeah.
And so it has to be something like that. Lamar Jackson was almost too good to ignore. He loses that game to Clemson against Deshaun Watson, where it was an absolute shootout. And so it's those games. But at this point, what are we really doing? Nobody else is playing well enough or playing as well as Jayden Daniels is playing.
Period. I
Period.
mean, like he's the best player
Full
in the sport.
stop.
It says that the Heisman goes to the best player in college football. Don't ever think it. Give it to the best player. I mean, but I wanted to talk as well about around Daniels, and this has been the difference of Jayden Daniels, right? And we've talked about the progression, we've talked about the development. Joe Sloan, Mike Denbrock, offensive staff deserve a ton of credit to continue to be able to develop a player like Daniels, not only with the amount of film that is out on Daniels, but he's a senior. I mean, he's deep into his career and he's still improving. You can see the marketable improvement that is being made throughout this guy's time at LSU. I mean, it is a great sales pitch for Sloan, for Denbrock, for Kelly. I think that there's an emphasis now on Kelly and the staff to get him the Heisman. I mean, this is a great recruiting pitch. You go to Bryce Underwood, go sit in his living room before this January 6th announcement, and you got a Heisman in your back pocket to take in there for your quarterback, along with this world-breaking, world-setting offense. I mean, like that's a tough pitch to say no to, right? So I think that there is an emphasis for Kelly and his staff to go after this award. Right, I think that you pad the hell out of the stats this weekend against a team like Georgia Southern, and then we'll get to Texas A&M here in a minute. But I want to talk real quick about Malik Nabers and Brian Thomas. Right, I mean we did talk about the guys like Josh Williams and Noah Cain and John Emery. Caleb Jackson had his first rushing touchdown, or he had a rushing touchdown on Saturday night. But Brian Thomas and Malik Nabers. First off, I think Nabers. He deserves to absolutely be one of the finalists.
Shit,
the
he
three
might be
finalists.
in New York.
He could be. I mean, for as good as he is, you talk about the amount of film out on somebody. It's one thing to have film out on a quarterback, right? Like there's things that a quarterback can do, and things that Jayden Daniels. Again, you could steal signs. You can watch as much film as you want. You can be as prepared as you want. There's just things that Daniels can do that you just can't defend. Right? And a lot of the indefensible things of Daniels are because you have to pay so much attention to the guys around him, specifically Brian Thomas and Malik Nabers. And another week goes by where these two just come in and from a stat standpoint dominate the game. Thomas, 8 targets, 6 catches, 150 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He also had one of those would be deemed a catch, but it's a kind of an end around
Pop pass.
Catch. Malik Nabers targeted 9 times, 6 catches, 132 on the night as well. I mean, it is tough to explain how good of wide receiver play LSU has seen over the last decade plus, but specifically this year, these two and how they play together in this offensive system. I mean, there are defenses you saw last week. I mean, the best in the game. He tried to take those two out of it. He tried to take Brian Thomas out of it. He tried to take away one of Daniels' security blankets, one of the guys that he knows that he can't outthrow, And these guys catch everything. It's such a big story when they drop. That's like last week when the ball was hitting the turf a little bit. You were wondering, like, what's the deal, man? These guys, it's very rare for them to drop the ball. But how good Thomas and Neighbors and the pressure, obviously, that they take off of Daniels and the just the cohesive chemistry that they play together with. This is all the stuff that, going into the season, you knew LSU was going to have its access to, but to see how good these guys play together is unreal, to see the efficiency of this offense. I mean, the way that they played after going down 28-24 felt like a video game. It felt like backyard football. It felt like you're almost toying with the defense. They could do anything they wanted to do, from a quarterback, wide receiver, throwing the ball, running the ball from that position, because the rush game without Logan Diggs is, complimentary. It's not. It does take a little bit away from the firepower. Not much, but a little bit of the firepower that LSU can.
Thought you were Matt McMahon over there banging on the table.
But it takes a little bit out of the tank for LSU with Diggs out, and the pressure that those guys have to perform under, and what they do every week is, it really is. It's incredible to watch that. You're this deep into the schedule and they're still playing at that high of a level after everybody in the building knows where the ball is going. I mean, everybody knows that those guys are going to get, would they get 18 targets on Saturday night collectively? So 20 targets average per week, and they still blow up every Saturday.
17 combined targets. Brian Thomas went for 8 targets, 6 catches, 152 touchdowns, long of 52. Malik, 6 catches on 9 targets, 132 with a long of 44. And then you had the Josh Williams, one catch, 45 yards. Chris Hilton, 2 for 3 for 21 yards.
It's nice to see Chris Hilton get
involved
involved again.
It is.
Mason Taylor, 1 for 18. But what I was more impressed with was the efficiency of the offense, man. Like, when you go through the possession chart, LSU, whether they needed to or not, like whenever they needed to score, they scored a touchdown in 13 seconds. They scored a touchdown in 1 minute and 7 seconds, 2 minutes. Their longest drive was 4 minutes and 30 seconds. That was the 4th down that they didn't convert. And then a 4-minute drive to salt the game away with a touchdown.
Yeah, the second drive of the game was kind of weird.
Yeah, it was.
Getting in the red zone, and you try to run the ball 3 straight times.
That's when it got real chippy, too. Like, you're trying to kind of steal. Florida was giving everything they got.
Yeah, and I think Brian Kelly was trying to, establish a little dominance, early in the game instead of doing it later in the game, and they just couldn't get pushed.
Couldn't move.
But I got no notes on the LSU offense.
Jayden Daniels got sacked 4 times Saturday night.
And they tried to pick him up again.
Right?
They did pick him up again.
Fine. Take him to New York.
But, there was some adversity, from an offensive standpoint.
Oh, Florida wanted that one bad.
Sure. Absolutely.
Because, they're at a crossroads where people are upset with how the LSU football season's going. Like,
look at Florida.
Look at A&M. Look at everywhere around the conference. This is not an easy league to win in. And you're in year 2 where you're staring down the barrel of another 10-win season, and your defense is historically bad. Like, granted, you can weigh it the other way where it feels like you wasted maybe a season with a great offense, but it kept you in the game. Like, you've still found a way to compete regardless of how bad your defense is.
Yeah, I think the defense, look.
It is what it is.
Right. It's if they can perform like they did on Saturday, all right. They can get
how
off
crazy
the field
is
a
that
couple
to
of times.
say?
They can get off the field
They
a
were
couple of
good
times.
early.
They were. And that's all it really takes.
Yeah, LSU had 4 sacks Saturday too.
With
Jayden Daniels only
there.
had 2. They only sacked Jayden Daniels twice. LSU had 4.
Womack was out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was.
He was dragging Jacoby and Guillory off the field.
Jacoby and Guillory.
Jacoby and Guillory probably played his best game in his career.
Thanks for tuning in to our premium LSU content right here on YouTube. If you want more of it, subscribe below.